Hi friends, happy Wind Down Wednesday. I'm so glad you're here with us this evening. Find someplace cozy to sit and we will get started. I'm so excited to read to you this evening. There's two stories we will listen to. What the stories have in common is that they're both super silly. And what is different about the stories is one of them has really unique pictures and the other one doesn't have any at all. These are the two stories we'll listen to. This one is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. You may have listened to this story before, or you may have watched the movie. And the other story we're going to listen to is The Book with No Pictures. Let's start with this one. The Book with No Pictures by B.J. Novak. The dedication is actually written in the back to the reader and the future reader. Brap, brog, burr, magrumph, The Book with No Pictures. This is a book with no pictures. It might seem like no fun to have someone read you a book with no pictures. It probably seems boring and serious, except here's how books work. Everything the words say, the person reading the book has to say it. I think I might have made a mistake. It's always important to double check your work. Let me try that again. Everything the words say, the person reading the book has to say. No matter what. That's the deal. That's the rule. So that means even if the words say, blork, wait, what? That doesn't even mean anything. Blurf. Wait a second. What? This isn't the kind of book I wanted to read, and I have to say every word the book says? Uh-oh. I am a monkey who taught myself to read. Hey! I'm not a monkey. And now I am reading you this book with my monkey mouth in my monkey voice. That's not true. I'm not a monkey. Yes, I am a monkey. Also, I am a robot monkey. What? And my head is made of blueberry pizza. Wait a second. Is this whole book a trick? Can I stop reading, please? No? And now it's time for me to sing you my favorite song. A song? Do I really have to sing A? Glug, glug, glug. My face is a bug. I eat ants for breakfast right off the rug. What? This book is ridiculous. Can I stop reading it? No? There are more pages? I have to read the rest. My only friend in the whole wide world is a hippo named Boo Boo Butt. Boo Boo Butt. And also, the kid I'm reading this book to is the best kid ever in the history of the entire world. Oh, really? And this kid is the smartest kid, too, because this kid chose this book, even though it had no pictures. Because kids know this is the book that makes grown-ups have to say silly things. And make silly sounds like. Oh no. Oh no. Here it comes. Glur, gawako, ma grumpa do. Aye. Brog, broog. Oomph, oomph. Blaggity. Glibbity, globbity, glibbity. Beep, boop. Ee. Ba, doongy. Face. Oh, my goodness. Please don't ever make me read this book again. It is so silly. In fact, it is completely and utterly preposterous. Next time, please choose a book with pictures, please. Because this is just too ridiculous to read. The end. Bonk. I didn't want to say that. The end. I hope this story made you smile and laugh because it was extra silly. Speaking of silly, this fiction, made-up story, I think will also make you smile. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. Over 4.5 million copies sold. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. When I was your age, I loved this story. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning. Pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed. Ha ha ha. Even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. So a tall tale is a made-up story. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. So that was the start of his story. Let's see what happens. So starting now, we're hearing the story that their grandfather is telling them. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. So the name of the town is Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Ooh, what food do you wish could come from the sky? In your opinion, which food would be best? In class, we're learning about opinion writing. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green beans. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. I had a hamburger for dinner. Connection. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction, a guess, based on clues, for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. The menu varied, which means that there was a lot of different options. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower, a short shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast, butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their buns, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. That's a fancy word for hot dog. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. So there's lots of pictures in this book. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing with a wonderful Jell-O setting in the west. Jell-O. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job. For a sanitation department, it had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. The Chew and Swallow Digest. Spaghetti ties up town. Record-breaking pasta fall causes chaos. Traffic snarled on Lower Intestine Street. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. This was one of my favorite pages. Or this is one of my favorite pages, but I remember being your age, listening to this book, and really loving this page. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. Pepper often makes people sneeze. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. Pulp is like little bits of food in a drink. So, for example, tomato juice, the pulp is little bits of tomato in it. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no school for the children. Closed due to heavy food. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. Abandon means to leave. It was a matter of survival. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter. They're thinking interdependently. Took the absolute necessities with them and set sail on their rafts for a new land. So they're leaving the town called Chew and Swallow on a boat that they made out of stale bread. The sail is made out of cheese and pizza. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. So now they built houses out of the stale bread. Stale bread means that it's old bread and it's usually stiff. Remember, this whole time, this is a story that the grandfather is telling to his grandkids. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. This is part of the story that the grandfather is telling. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Right? The people from the town of Chew and Swallow only knew about food that came from the sky. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside of our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. There's Grandpa. There are the kids. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat or slice of butter at the top. And we could almost smell mashed potatoes, just like in the story that their grandfather told them. They have a really good imagination if they are thinking of a pat or a slice of butter when they see the sun and mashed potato mountains. The end. Again, I hope these stories this evening made you smile and giggle. I hope you have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.